G'day everyone. I am doing an interview today with someone who is someone I've looked up to since, well, he started his blog in 2015. I think I came across it maybe in 2016, 2017. So Dennis Moons, who is the owner, founder of Store Growers, is probably the greatest person that I know of, or in my opinion, is the best authority in the world around feed management for Google Ads Merchant Center and that universe here. So yesterday I just reached out to Dennis and I was like, can I have an interview with you? Like, I feel like I just want to ask you questions, but I want to share it with everyone as well. And that's what I love doing is I love learning and I love sharing. So we've done this. Dennis was really generous with his time and he jumped on early in the morning, 9 a.m. for him. And I'm just really excited for this. So Dennis, thank you for jumping on today, mate.
Thank you, man. Thanks for the kind words, and yeah, happy to have a chat. Been following your stuff for a while as well, so it's cool that we get to talk in person.
Yeah, it's like the best thing about running an agency and being to put myself out there is I've actually been able to connect with people who I've been looking up to, people like Ed Leek, Kasim from Solutions 8, Corey Lindholm, who I do a podcast with, people who I deeply respect. So I feel like today it's like I'm really grateful because I get to connect with you because I've loved your content for years. It has been the most in-depth, practical, and insightful information about feed management. Now, I know you've done other stuff and I read your blog, but it's that I'm like, you are the number one. And just for everyone's context, Dennis, you have a mastermind group. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we basically what we do at Store Growers is we have a bunch of courses to take people from really like beginner level all the way to becoming an expert. That's how I like to position the mastermind. It's for people that already are like working with Google Ads a lot and they're kind of like looking for the next thing to learn. So I think we kind of cracked like how to do that. So that's what we do in our community / mastermind.
Yeah. And it's hosted on Circle as well, which is an outstanding platform. I'm in Ed Leek's Forge mastermind. And yeah, it's just when you're in a mastermind, like a legit mastermind for a specialized skill, it makes a profound difference. Dennis did a mini course. It was a sprint course for about 3 weeks or 28 days last year called Feed Frenzy. Now, I don't think it's available anymore, but it was outstanding. And I think it was outstanding because I've spent years optimizing feeds and looking for ways to make it better. And this was the first most practical course that I'd ever been through that was like a step from A to Z on optimizing the feed. And it was literally just one little bit each day. So then by the end, you've got like a fully functional feed that you've been testing as well. So I've gone through the material, that I've paid material, and I think it's amazing. So I will allow you to talk about your stuff at the end, but let's have a conversation here. So you've been doing feeds now, or like mastering in feeds since 2015. I just want to ask a few questions, and I've written them down, but they're very generic. Is when you look for clients or people come and reach out to you for consulting, what are the biggest mistakes that you do see in feeds?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest one is where people just take what they have, like just what they came up with, probably like on their website, and they just push that into the feed. Now, if they've done some SEO work on their website, so optimizing page titles or product titles, usually it's okay. But sometimes the information that's being pushed into the feed is just lacking details, which means that they're running ads and they're paying and they're seeing like search terms pop up, and maybe they think that that's what's available, right? But they don't realize that by tweaking the feed, they're actually able to to influence like what search queries your ads are actually appearing for. So I think that's one. And the second one is around product selection. So again, most people, they connect their Shopify or whatever platform to Google Merchant Center, and then they just run with that and create campaigns based on that. Maybe they have a single campaign with all of the products that they have.
Yeah.
And again, that's what I think is right. Now, I think for businesses that I always like to use like the physical retail store because it's so much easier to explain. But they have like a concept called like merchandising, and merchandising really is about like how do you present what you have to offer to a customer that walks in the door. So there's like they have like crazy amounts of technology and consultants and thinking behind this. And on your website, a lot of people might also do that, right? They think about what are we featuring on the home page or the category pages, which products do we show first, etc. But then, like when it comes to the feed and when it comes to actually paying to push your products to people, all that thinking, all that like knowledge that there goes out of the window. So just being thoughtful and thinking about like, okay, which products should we advertise? Maybe it's your best sellers. Maybe it's the products that that people always are attracted to, but maybe they don't buy those. Maybe they end up buying something else. So it's being a lot more strategic. So I think those two are probably the biggest mistakes around feeds that I see.
Wonderful, mate. So Dennis, when you said around the original feed, you say people don't tweak it, and then also it's about like categorization. So what are the tweaks that when you look at a feed, you find that have the biggest increase to actually deliver the products better to the market? Because just a bit of context, I'm noticing with a lot of my clients now that we're getting really good return on ad spends. We're getting really good sales volume and value. But when we go back up further up the funnel, which is like sales, then clicks, then impressions is the area where I'm like, if we can get more impressions, we can get more clicks, more sales, more return on ad spend, and more revenue. So what do you find are the things that when you recommend to even just like people in your mastermind or clients, what are the things that you tend to recommend tweaking first before anything else?
Yeah. So the biggest attribute is the product title, right? So there's, if you look at your product feed, there's hundreds of different attributes, and people sometimes end up spending a lot of time like rewriting descriptions and stuff, which is okay, but it's like far down like the list of optimization of priorities. So the product title is the one that matters most, and I think when thinking about a product title, a good first step is to kind of like look at your actual product titles and just ensure that all the information is there. Something that I often see is people reselling other products is that there might be missing stuff like the brand that they're reselling, right? So imagine like selling a brand, which is, if you think about it from like a business perspective, if you're reselling a brand, you're able to kind of like tap into the people that already know this brand, that are looking for this brand, and then you're just like showing that you have something to offer. So imagine then not using that advantage in your feed. So I see that often, like where there's a brand or like a product name. So if you're reselling products, like making sure that those are in there, it's super important. And then I think like to what you said, at a certain point, you've kind of tapped out of the most obvious stuff, right? So, I have the brand, I have the product description. And then it's thinking about like, okay, what other areas what other signals can you give to Google or to kind of say like, oh, maybe this is an interesting to kind of add to the feed. I'll give you a good example. I've done a lot of work in jewelry, in that jewelry e-commerce. So by definition, a product like is always a certain type of jewelry, right? Jewelry is the category. So it's either a necklace or earring or ring or something. But so people are usually searching for a specific thing. But actually, if you're able to, but a lot of people are also searching for like just jewelry, the category. So how do you decide like which products do you want to push for that more general term, right? So this is something you can think about. If you've maximized the searches for like a certain type of earring, right? How do you get more impressions? Is, well, you go a bit more broader in terms of search terms. So let's say you have like a certain, let's go like symbol. I'm not going to bore everyone with the jewelry details, but like a certain ring, like a small hoop. So you could call it like hoop earrings. And then you could describe like the material. Maybe it's like silver hoop earrings. But you can also go the other way, right? So it could be like earrings. It could be jewelry. It could be silver jewelry. So by actually thinking about like what other terms your product would be useful for, you can actually get more impressions by adding those terms into your product title. And it's this really like every time you go up like one level, your product becomes like less relevant, right? So if you have like the think about it, like a silver hoop earring, that's if that's what your product is, it's going to be super relevant. If you go up to like earring, well, some people are going to look for gold earrings or going to look for small earrings, and then if you go up one more like jewelry, it will be even less relevant. But still, there is like a portion of people that are searching for those high value terms that are going to find your product useful. So if it is a popular product, you actually stand a chance to get in there, but you have to kind of nudge Google to also consider you for those terms. So
that's awesome. So I'm not going to interject when you talk because I'm going to be polite.
Yeah.
But when you do that, is that just appending those words or like adding those those terms to the end of the product title? Or do you find that the certain syntax or position it's in, like if you put silver jewelry before the earring, that makes more of an impact? Does Google, from your experience and perspective, rank a product differently for different terms based on if it's earring, silver earring, jewelry versus jewelry, silver earring? Does that make a difference?
I think the most important thing is to also think about it from a user's perspective, right? Like here we're talking about like basically adding fluff to a title, which is okay. It's not like keyword stuffing that used to be a thing back in the day with SEO, but Google's actually like all open for this. They even recommend it in their documentation. But thinking about it from a user's point of view is they're searching something, and similar to other types of advertising, to a search ad or something, they're looking for certain, they have a certain thing in their mind, and they're looking for confirmation that you sort of have what they're looking for. And when they see that, they're more likely to click. So if let's say you have an earring and you're going to start out with, this is an example. We have the best silver jewelry, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, oh, and here's like, it's also an earring that's silver, and no one's going to see it because Google is going to cut off the title. So that has a huge impact on your click-through rate, and your click-through rate has a huge impact on how likely Google is to show that product in, especially for those more like broader searches. If you look for like silver jewelry, there's only 5 or 10 slots. So Google wants to make sure that the products they're showing there, people are going to click on it. So if you have already like a poor click-through rate before, it's going to have an impact on the ability to really like get more impressions. For that, I like to like lead with the most important part. So if it's a product title or something, I'll put it there. If it's more generic, like silver earring, like I want to put that there. Now, also in terms of like in practical terms, if you're an advertiser and you have like hundreds of products to optimize, it's super easy to tack on stuff at the end, right? Either through a supplemental feed or a feed rule. You can say, oh, if it's this category, like just tack on like this snippet. And this is really where you can make like the quickest progress. Like thinking like 80-20, it's like, oh, we're just going to append like all the products in this category with this term, and immediately you start showing for it. So that's usually what I do. Like in the beginning, it's pretty, it's pretty raw. Like you're just adding stuff, and then over time, you kind of look at your top performing SKUs, and there you can really go like do manual work, right? Try and tweak the title, make it better, make it more reader friendly or user friendly. And that's only going to be for like the terms or for the products that are showing up most. So you're not going to waste time like rewriting hundreds of titles. So
awesome. I feel like you say so many things. I've got so many questions. The first thing, going back a little bit, you mentioned about if you're reselling something on behalf, it's like Nike shoes. You're right. A lot of people forget to put the brand in the product title because it may be under that category on the website. I had that in Australia, one of the biggest supplement companies. I was working with at an old agency, and their tablets were called like Bilberry. Like they're kind of like natural things. But I was like, why are they never showing in the feed? And then I realized because people look for the brand name plus this thing. But when I looked for the brand name and plus like Bilberry or whatever, all the competitors would show, but they wouldn't because the brand name was so important. Even though the brand was in the underneath by the company and all this stuff, it wasn't in there. And I tried to ask the client or ask the account manager to ask the client to put it in the title on the website. And they're like, no, it's against compliance. Back then, this is back in like 2016, I didn't know I could use feed rules or supplemental feeds. And if I knew that, it would have fixed it like that. But feed rules and supplemental feeds, which you're talking about, or optimizing titles are so important because you might literally own the brand and other people are reselling it and they will rank higher because they've actually optimized the titles better than you. The other thing was, what was it about categorization? Oh yeah, appending the name at the end. I've got many clients that, let's just say there's a stone client and there's different types of stone. So rather than manually updating it, I use a feed rule which would pull from custom label 4 or something, pulling the type of stone, insert that, and then adding some more fluffy keywords like, travertine, and then it's like ethical stone, and just like adding all these things in because you're right. Like I forget that these things that you do in bulk really do significantly help. It's almost, it is keyword stuffing, but Google wants that because they want relevant products to show because most people's product titles are non-descriptive and then their descriptions on their page is sometimes kind of off. So it's the only way to improve it. And not for me to talk too much, but I've gone through your course, and when you went through your course as well, you were using the description of jewelry because I think that's a really good example of something that you could be really specific on, but also very general on as well. A lot of people, if they're selling certain e-commerce things, they're going to be quite specific / not that broad. But like you said, you can go broad with this as well. So thank you for sharing that. The other thing was, this is the next question I want to ask you. Now, I know you do this. So in the Feed Frenzy course, you recommended that you make these optimizations to product titles and then you run them in standard shopping. So then you could actually start to see the search terms coming through to ensure that they're actually, populating for those terms. Do you want to talk about that if you're open to it?
Yeah. I find that with talking about like standard shopping, PMax still like big debate, like which one is better, which one is the best.
And what is your opinion? That's what I want to know. What's better for you as a master of the feed and the data? What do you think's better on a high level?
So I think if you're starting out, or if you're starting out in this like optimization type of thing, it's super like with Performance Max, it's a big I don't want to say mess, but it's a big mix of things, right? Even if you're just looking at the shopping portion of Performance Max, that's actually also pulling in remarketing. Dynamic remarketing is also being reported there. So if you're just going off like click-through rate and impressions, you're actually not optimizing for the thing that you're looking to optimize, right? Which is what titles are we appearing for and what's our click-through rate on those terms. So I find that with standard shopping, it sort of pares everything down to your ads are appearing, you kind of know where your ads are appearing, and any changes that you make, you're able to observe in your campaign. And you're also able to kind of see like, okay, does this... So by default, you can only see like the search terms on an ad group level. But let's say you're splitting out ad groups for each product. You can actually see exactly which product is showing for which search term. So then if you make a change to that product, you're able to see like over time, like how this particular product evolved. Now, this isn't to say that you need this type of control like forever. but it can just be a test for like certain products where you really run like a heavy optimization and you kind of see like how you can nudge Google to show you for better terms. And then you apply that to your other products, or then you switch off your standard shopping if it's not getting you results, and you pull that over to Performance Max. So it's to me, I'm not really tied to any campaign type. But if you're starting out, if you need more, if you need like cleaner data, I go for standard shopping. And then if you're kind of like tapped out there, and you want to explore Performance Max and kind of test it against the other campaigns, you can then do that there. But then okay, at least my product titles, they're good,
Yes.
and then you can take that.
I love that, because when I saw that strategy, I thought it just made a lot of common sense, because there was a whole big trend around just do Performance Max, because smart shopping was around, and smart shopping was this like holy land of getting results. But as you optimize titles, you want to make sure that you actually end up getting traffic for that. Like, you don't want to be optimizing a title and you never show for it. And yes, you can Google it yourself, but by running that in a standard shopping campaign with that on an ad group by itself, you can actually see the search terms. The benefit is you can, and I saw this in your course, over time you can see, are the impressions rising for this product for searches? And then secondly, which is the gold mine, which I think people forget, it's you actually get to see the search terms, so you can create a negative keyword list that you could apply to your Performance Max. Because how many times do you look at a product feed and you look at like the standard shopping and the search terms are just crazy? They're just horrible. And that's not because the feed wasn't optimized. It was because Google allows products to show for rubbish searches. And if you get that, you can create a negative keyword list that you apply to Performance Max. So it actually gives you the transparency on product searches that Performance Max doesn't.
Yeah, or like riffing on that, you get sometimes you're showing up for really weird stuff. And you might not realize like why that's happening, but it could be somewhere in the description where it says like I don't know, where our products don't use poison or something, and then you're showing up for like poison version of the product or something, right? So to avoid that type of thing, like it's good to kind of like have that check early on.
Yeah, definitely. I really love that, because, and you know this probably better than I do, Performance Max is a mess. I'm going to use your word, a mess, where you're getting display ads, search ads, video ads created. Now you can do the feed only asset groups, which are like, that's more like the dynamic, but Google is phasing into automatic. They're adding stuff to it again, so you can't do feed only. But if you're running Performance Max, most e-commerce clients, 95 to 98% of their sales will come from shopping ads. So you don't want your budget and everything else going to other ad placements that are shit. So, sorry, I'm Australian, so I use very direct language. And I think that's the really good thing that I learned from you and your courses was, bring it back to a standard shopping campaign, not only so you can actually see the search terms and the impressions and watch it grow, but also you do, as you've been mentioned, you're just only getting shopping traffic. You're not getting traffic from around, because if people realistically, Pete, guys, if you're looking at just clicks and impressions from the Performance Max, you don't know Google Shopping. Like, you need to be looking at the search terms, the return on ad spends, the products that are actually performing, and on a product level as well. So I'm just glad you shared that. And I don't know, shared it here, but also shared it in your courses, because it's actually been really insightful, where a lot of information out there about shopping and PMax is just so campaign driven rather than product and feed driven. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, mate, because I feel like it's really insightful. Yeah,
I think like tying it back, it's what you we mentioned this like before we started recording, but how people will change, or advertisers will change like what they have access to and what they can see in their account, right? So what they see in their account is adding assets or not adding assets, creating a new campaign, creating a new asset group, changing the budget, changing the target, upgrading a campaign, like all of that stuff. But the stuff that you don't see, like the feed, like
Yes.
your website, like your like basically what I call like all of the inputs, right? So all of your customer data, if your remarketing is firing like properly, all that stuff is like invisible, but like vital to kind of yeah, make a difference with your campaign. So when you're working from like a really good foundation, where everything is firing as it's supposed to, you're tracking all the conversions, your products have the correct information and are showing up for the right things, like it almost becomes like it becomes much easier to actually see good results, because you can trust like what's going on, and you don't have to and then you can add in your however you want to structure or optimize your campaign. So
I'll just say this. I'll do a spoiler alert so people don't. This will cost Dennis and myself money. You can run a Performance Max campaign with one asset group and one campaign if you have an amazing feed. That's the secret. If you have a really good feed, Google will do its work. The problem is 99% of the times people's feeds are horrible because the Shopify or the backend feed that pushes in is not optimized. If you optimize the feed properly, you could be lazy on Google Ads and get outstanding results. The problem is most specialists don't actually know how to optimize feeds. Therefore, they're just like, what can I do in the account? What can I do in changes? And like you said, Dennis, I was on a call with a client today who's having amazing success with e-commerce in general. And I said to him, I'm like, he doesn't check the change history, but I'm like, look, if you check the change history, you wouldn't see what I'm doing because I'm in this spreadsheet, this supplemental feed, creating things. I'm in the merchant center. Like that's where the magic's being created. What Google gets is like, Google's kind of like the waiter. I'm the chef. I'm doing all the cooking, preparing in the back, and then Google gets to serve it to me. That is actually the best analogy. I just realized that just came to me. But we're like the chefs, and doing the feed is like really preparing it. So then when it does come out to serve, it's being served properly. So then anyone who sees the ad will enjoy the ad and buy it. So
it's sort of like how I also think about like the future of our work, right? So if you're watching this, or the people that watch this, and your work currently is like managing Google Ads campaigns, and most of the things that you do are making changes in the account, I'm pretty sure that within like 2-5 years that's going away, right? So you will need to find a different job. So what your job will be to kind of like make sure that you have like amazing inputs and be a lot more strategic rather than playing around or clicking buttons in the account. It's more thinking about, okay, which campaigns should we create, and like how everything plays together.
Anyway, just letting people know the internet just dropped out, and we're going to continue the conversation. So if the flow seems like it dropped out a bit, we're coming back to it. So you were mentioning that when the future, to future-proof yourself, you've got to be ahead of the inputs because, like you said, tweaking the Google Ads account won't be enough because that stuff will be automated. Google is automating it because it's taking away those features. So what are those other inputs that you think will work?
Well, as I mentioned before, it's like your product feed, we've talked a lot about. One is getting your conversion tracking. So conversion tracking used to be very simple. It's gotten a lot harder with a lot of privacy updates, a lot of changes around cookies. So making sure that you're on top of it, it can be like quite a technical barrier for a lot of people, but it's actually not that complicated. And I think like it's going to be much easier, or there's going to be tools that make it much easier to kind of tap into that. Second is being good with your audiences. Like customer match is still like a big part of how you signal to Google what your clients or what your ideal customers look like, but also allowing them to kind of use this in different ways. So you can, if you have like a substantial audience, you can send in like your subscribers, send in your customers, send in your VIP customers, and then let Google run with that, but also use those audience as part of your campaign, or seeing like the newer like demand gen campaign, Google brought back like lookalike audiences that use those same audiences as a source. So very similar to how Facebook is doing. And I'm still experimenting with it. It's not up to the level that Facebook's lookalike audiences were, but it's interesting. Like what I'm seeing, it's sort of I'm not seeing it outperform other audiences yet in those campaigns, but it is like you can see that Google is optimizing towards towards getting more traffic that looks like that. So it's interesting.
Awesome, mate. This is amazing. I'm just glad we're having this conversation. So I'll ask you, what are the strategies, just looking at some of my notes, what are the strategies you tend to use with clients or recommend just to get great results, like an 80-20 approach? You did mention with the feeds is optimizing the titles and then also running a standard shopping for products because, you can see the transparency. Are there any things like other things that you do that you recommend just in general for people to make this a bit more practical?
Yeah. So I always try to go back to the basics. So there's lots of options in Google. There are lots of different campaign types. Depending who you speak to, they will have like a different go-to list of campaigns. I try to kind of like pare it down and try to focus on establishing a good foundation for a client. So depending on like what industry you're in, it's either search or it's shopping, right? So having those like your bread and butter campaigns, show your ads to the people that are most likely to click to, that are most likely to buy. Whether if you're just starting out, maybe you're doing something like tiered shopping where you're actually focusing on certain search queries with your shopping campaigns to really tap into the most profitable part of shopping ads for you. And then when you have like that basic foundation, like if you don't have it, you need to keep iterating on like what you have, right? On your products, on your offer, on your website, until you have that working. Because if you can't make shopping work as an e-commerce business, it will be very hard to make search work because it's more expensive. It will be very hard to layer in other like more fancy things like YouTube or Demand Gen or even Performance Max, because it's those all like work higher up in the funnel. So it will take longer to see results, and it will also be more expensive to kind of like wait until you get that result. So if you have like that solid foundation, and so for some clients it's okay, they have it. We just turn on the campaign and it starts working, and it's profitable. It might only be, I don't know, spending like $100 a day, and they might want to spend like 2,000 a day or something. But at least you have something to work off. And then once you have that, you start looking at that next layer of campaigns to kind of see like, okay, we have something that works. What happens if we add something here on top and get more people a little bit higher up the funnel, which can then like impact all the others? And when you do that, like most of the times you get stuck on a certain level. So not every client needs to use YouTube short ads, right? Not every client needs to use demand gen campaigns, but only the ones that are doing really well, we will layer that on top to kind of see like, okay, what difference does it make to kind of like add these in? Can we, get 10 times as much traffic or something? But I find that usually advertisers start at the wrong place of the funnel, and then they don't get results, and then they're not sure like what's going on, right? But if you start like closest to the sale and then you work your way backwards, that's sort of like my main approach at how I do clients, like even smaller or even really big ones. So
awesome. That's really great. And I like what you said about starting off with shopping or like standard shopping, because the cost per clicks are significantly lower than search. So if you can't make that work, the shopping network is so underpriced cost per click wise for the value it delivers. It is absolutely crazy because firstly, there's a visual element and it shows the price. So people, if your price is better than competitors, people will naturally click on lower prices. but they get to visually see it. Search doesn't have that, or it didn't have it until recently. So I really like what you said there. Now, in terms of feed, like managing the feed and making changes, do you tend to use feed rules in Merchant Center, or do you tend to use supplemental feeds or a third party tool? What's your preference?
Yeah, I usually will do a mix of feed rules. So feed rules is, if you can use that, you usually save yourself a lot of time and effort, right? Because
Yes.
if you're able to set one rule that applies to all of your products, yeah, immediately
Yes.
it's fixed. Now I do use supplemental feeds as well, simply because it's you can use like all of the magic of spreadsheets and formulas to kind of like
Yeah.
very quickly add stuff. Even like with feed rules, it's easy to kind of like append or prepend information. But with a Google Sheet, you can actually put stuff like in between, right? If you know your formulas a little bit. So
use
that's what I
ChatGPT,
use.
by the way. That works really well if you understand sheets and formulas pretty well, and you understand the logic. You can use ChatGPT to kind of write that out. I just wanted to interject there because it can get overwhelming, but if you are creative and understand formulas, just ChatGPT is a godsend.
Yeah, Google also has like a tool they've been developing, like FeedGen, which is
Okay.
really like sort of like generative AI applied to product titles. So I played with it when it came out, I think like half a year ago or something. But yeah, it's really not up to the standards of
A guru like you.
GPT-4. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. So it's Google is a bit behind like their Gemini models and stuff. Even the stuff that they have like inside of Google Ads, they have the capability. But if I'm thinking like, oh, would Google do a good job of rewriting the titles? They should have like amazing data, right? They
Yeah.
know like well, they have like data from like millions, even maybe billions of products, and they know like
Billions.
what people click on. So they, in theory, they should be sitting on like the best data sources for this. But yeah, it wasn't up to speed yet. But yeah, as you said, like leveraging AI tools can really like help you to, if not like rewrite, maybe also give you good ideas on what like alternative product titles could look like, right?
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Now, in terms of other fields, I know what the answer probably will be, but do you use many custom labels and all that type of stuff? Or is it mainly just around product titles?
Yeah, so custom labels are one of the biggest ways to kind of help you with product selection,
Yes.
like making sure that you have the right products showing up for, subdividing your products for you to understand. Because out of the box, as we talked about in the beginning, it's just like one big feed. And sometimes if you're the business owner, you might intuitively know like, oh yeah, this is our great product, or this isn't. But if you're working for a client or with a lot of variations, it's very hard to kind of have that running in the back of your mind and also running the campaigns. So
Yes.
having custom labels like bestsellers, or if you're like subdividing your product into more different buckets, using some kind of automation to push the correct custom labels to the correct products, that's like really like super important in the way I work, not just in feed optimization, but also more in general in managing campaigns.
Yeah, wow. So, in terms of custom labels, I've noticed over times when I look at accounts that do have them, people do them differently. So, I know you've mentioned bestsellers. What other custom labels do you tend to do? Like, I tend to do, just for example, like product ranges, maybe fabric types, maybe stone types. Like, there's so many because I've got such a range of e-commerce clients. But you've mentioned top sellers or best sellers. What other things do you tend to segment out using custom labels in general?
Yeah, so there's a few ways. As I said, like sometimes you use them for product selection, so it can be an indicator of how well they're selling. It can be like what the margin is on certain products. It can be sometimes also the seasonality, right? Where
Yeah.
you're pulling in like, oh, these products are. I remember I had like a client where they had like really 5 really distinct seasons throughout the year, and products would go. Some products would sell, year round. Others would sell only in certain parts. So having that type of like business logic added to the
Yes.
campaigns, and it's usually as an agency or PPC manager or something, you usually don't have this. Like this is
Yes.
your client has this knowledge, and intuitively they know this. So it's I see it as one thing when you start working with a client. It's important to understand like what their business is like, and all those differences. I know you mentioned the stone client, right? Probably when you started managing that, you had no idea about like all the different type of stones. But now that you talk with them and they're like, oh yeah, but actually these stones, they're like super expensive, or these are like,
Yes.
I don't know, the stones that people really want, or this is like a more ecological trend where we don't mine from, I don't know, like far away place. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, like maybe we should use this in our campaigns. So those are like the usual ways I'll use custom labels. And then sometimes I also use them in terms of when we're testing product titles. Sometimes we also use this to kind of indicate, okay, like we're running a test on this product, or this product is in the control group, so that afterwards we're really able to kind of compare our stats more easily. Just in the account, right? We can see like, okay, everything tagged with this custom label did this, everything tagged with that custom label. It's a control group, and we can see like what happened there. So
I
yeah,
love that. Dennis, you shared I always like creating like mental frameworks or models for things. And there's so many ways you can use custom labels. What you mentioned was business intelligence, being it seasonality or bestsellers. Now, a lot of people, when they hear bestsellers, they may go, oh, it's a bestseller based on the Google Ads data. No, it might just be bestseller on e-commerce in general, or bestseller in the physical store. And the Google Ads data, especially if it's new, won't show that, even though the business intelligence is there. So that's one type of custom label, which is using business intelligence from the business owner or the marketing manager to push in. The second one is using Google Ads, customizing based on the product type, just information just based on the product type or product label or title. The third, it could be based on the Google Ads performance. Once you're running it for a while, is it a high seller on Google? Is it a high ROAS? Is it a low ROAS product? Is it a low seller? Like, is it a low impression? So Google performance. And then fourth, which you mentioned, is labeling based on your own experimentation for it. Are we doing a split test on the titles, a control group versus a test? So I really like that, because I think that was what I was trying to get at, was what are the custom labels you use? I was trying to get to the specifics, but I realized your ones that you shared were more about business intelligence, about like the business owner sharing things, because I tend to do it around either product categorization, just based on the product title, product types, or the product performance in Google Ads. But I really like what you shared, because that's really bridging in the world of the business intelligence to the advertising, that's where success happens. If you're just looking at your ad account and thinking that this is all the business data in the universe, you're stupid, because that will
yeah,
be so focused on the Google Ads data, which is so biased towards how it's been operated. The feed, a product may be a high seller, but in your feed, it's a low seller because you haven't optimized the title, or you just didn't know that even though it's got a low margin to it, it's actually a high revenue because it sells a lot. So I just want to say thank you for that, because that actually just made me think a little differently. So yeah,
yeah.
it's really good just to understand these things from a different angle.
It's also when you have like the as you mentioned, like, so you're looking at what's happening in the store, and then you try to translate that back into Google Ads. So that's important when you're starting out, right? When you don't have your any data yet. But after a while, Google usually like will pick products and will push those products for whatever reason. Maybe they had like a really good click-through rate initially, or for some reason they pick a product. And actually, I found it. I remember a client a few years back, and I kind of went, as you said, like we looked at what was selling like in their e-commerce backend, kind of seeing like, okay, what's working, and then comparing that to the results that we get in Google Ads, like which products are selling in Google Ads, and comparing the two. And sometimes like products that sell well on their e-commerce store, maybe through SEO or other channels, it's going to be, it can be different from what's actually working in Google Ads. But if so for them, we discovered like a certain range, like a subcategory of products that wasn't getting any visibility inside of Google Ads. So we said like, oh, this is actually interesting. Let's start pushing that. And we started pushing that, and actually it became like one of the best-selling subcategories that we were doing. So thinking really like putting links in between the two, I think is really valuable, even if you've been running the account for a while. So
that is really valuable. And I think that's all too common, those cases. That's why it's important to talk to clients about what are they seeing, because you were mentioning before, like some business owners just intuitively know this, but if you're an ad manager for them, you don't intuitively know it. You've only met them for an hour or 2 hours or how many hours you've talked to them. Like they run their business 40, 50, 60 hours a week. They're in all the data. They know everything. Even if they don't think they know, they do know. And if you're just looking at Google Ads as like the source of what people want, that's not the truth, because Google's only going to deliver based on the feed or how you set up the campaigns. So I actually think that was a really great example that you looked at the back of Shopify, the back of the e-commerce platform, which could be, you could replace that with just talking to the business owner about what they notice they sell in their physical shop, or they just sell as a top seller, because there will be times, may not be all the time, maybe 50, 60, 70% of the time where it does match up. But that 50, 40, 30% of the time where it doesn't match up, that's your biggest leverage point. That's where you get that outsized return consistently. And most businesses have one winning product or two winning products. They will know that if your ads are not like prioritizing those one or two winning products, you're going to lose, because they will be the products that, one, get people in, two, people buy, three, turn them into someone that gets on their email list, and then four, they can keep selling to those people because they're on the email list and they've bought the best product, which would give them the best customer experience.
Yeah, exactly. It's
so yeah,
don't do that.
Don't do that. So look, mate, I know we've been on the call for quite a while, and I know you've got a busy day ahead. Was there anything you just wanted to share about feeds or Google Ads in general, as a last point of knowledge before we wrap up and you can talk about some other stuff?
Yeah, maybe just thinking about like the feed. A lot of people, it's the reason why we've talked about it so much is that it becomes such a center of the whole Google Ads for e-commerce ecosystem. If you think about like, it's in Shopping Ads, it's in Performance Max, all the parts of Performance Max use product feed in some way or form. It's now being added to YouTube campaigns. It's now central in demand gen campaigns, which also all heavily rely on the feed. So I think really putting more effort and giving more attention to that part of the business can have like outsized returns compared to other things that you can do. So yeah, just want to put another notch to kind of like go work on your feed.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'll say this just as like a quick summary of it. Google Shopping Ads, Standard Shopping, and PMax, the best success comes from the shopping ads. That's where you get the lowest cost per click and highest revenue. Full stop. No one can doubt that. But it's garbage in, garbage out. If you've got a garbage feed, you're going to get garbage results. If you have a great feed, you'll get great results. So a lot of this, whilst this is a very nuanced topic, if you just master this, you could be if you run your own business, talk to Dennis or myself and we can help do this for you. But you can really, if you just focus on this one thing, you'd get better results than spending hundreds of hours in your Google Ads account. So focus on your feed, clean up your feed, and you will make a significant amount of money. So Dennis, I want to wrap this up because I want you to get on with your amazing day. So how can people find you? Please share about Store Growers or working with you. This is your time to just share where people can find you, where they can learn more, they can buy courses and information from you.
Yeah, I think the best place is storegrowers.com. We have like a big repository of articles where you can go to learn about every part of Google Ads. If you find that interesting, you'll see like sprinkled throughout the site many opportunities to opt into our newsletter. We also have a set of courses, but I think it might be good, Michael, that we include. I have like a really detailed article on product feed optimization. So to kind of like bridge the gap let's include that link. And then if you want to
Yes.
learn more, you'll be able to find everything there.
Wonderful. I'll definitely share that because your information has been so thorough. It's not just generic high level, like here's a few dot points. It's really thorough. And if people just spend, an hour reading it and really digesting it, it will, like, everyone's looking for that edge in advertising. You've got it in your, I'm pitching you because you've made such a significant impact on me and my business to get better results for my clients. So like, I just want to platform you as much as I can. So Dennis, thank you so much for all the time, energy, and effort you've put into releasing free content, because you have probably had one of the biggest impacts on feeds in the world that I know of. As much as it just was a blog, everyone I talk about, I feed, they mention you. People who I've looked up to years, and I speak to them and I told them, oh, I'm having a chat with Dennis. They say, like, say hi to him for me, because people look up to you. So I just want to say thank you for the impact you're making. You're making help a lot of specialists' lives easier and business owners, like, making them more money. So thank you.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Excellent. Well, everyone, follow Dennis, find him on LinkedIn, go to storegrowers.com. I'll put the article below, but thank you for watching till the end. I hope you got a lot out of it. I know I did, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.